trust that the counselor is indeed there. And we lean in and we listen as long as it takes. And this is an act of faith. It's an amazing thing because as we wait, the empty chair begins to feel more and more occupied. We begin to feel the warm breath against the cheek. We begin to brush up against an actual being. Then we see the Ancient One who was sitting there all along. We just couldn't see it before. We see that ancient counselor, the Ancient of Days, that our ancestors speak about in the Bible. Now, no one can see a short wave. Short waves are imperceptible to the eye. They require a very sophisticated instrument in order to receive a short wave. Yet, if you have a shortwave radio, you can receive those waves. We have to be tuned in. No one can see the ancient counselor, but if we tune in long enough and listen with our whole hearts, the mystics and prophets of our tradition tell us we will begin to perceive that the counselor is indeed there. Now, it's true that the Holy Spirit or counselor requires a lot of wait time. It is only after we have patience that we begin to hear the faint whisper, like my grandpa's voice, like a warm breath against our cheek. It is only after we have the patience that we begin to actually hear the short waves coming through the radio. Now I've got a story. When I was growing up overseas, I grew up in different countries. Well, my dad, one of the things that he loved, and he loved this more than just about anything, was listening to BBC on the shortwave radio. I mean, he loved that. He looked forward to that. But this was kind of a long process. And my dad, what he'd do with this shortwave radio is he would put it in different places in the house, trying to get it just right. And he had these two long antennas, and he'd move them in different, and he was jimmying them one way and another, And at one point, I even remember he had some wires, like some kind of baling wire, and he didn't think the antenna was quite long enough, so he tied some baling wire into one of the antennas and kind of swirled off. And then this shortwave radio was the most sophisticated one he could find, and it had these different dials. And so he would be fidgeting with those dials, especially this one fine-tuning place. He'd have to fine-tune that one dial. Well, when BBC finally came through, and when those short waves finally came through, there was an aha moment. And everyone in the house kind of let out a breath. Oh, Dad's finally found his BBC, And we all just kind of breathed a little easier. But friends, and this is it really is a teaching here. This is a teaching. All of us, if we persevere in prayer, we will get that aha moment. And when the still small voice finally comes in clearly, we will say, I was blind, and now I see. The ancient counselor was there all along. I was blind. The short waves were there all along. The BBC is actually coming in here in La Paz, Bolivia, of all places. Here in my own living room. Most give up on the counselor too soon. But don't give up. This is the essence of faith and trust, that an answer will come even when there is no sign of one. Now, the shortest political speech ever recorded in history was Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, one time, he got up and he said, "Never give up, never give up, never give up." And then he sat down. That was the end of the speech. It's the shortest speech ever in political history. And for God's sake, don't give up on the Holy Spirit. God's counselor, the Holy Spirit, is our lifeline when everything else in life lets us down. Like Paul, we might find ourselves in prison. Like Jesus, we might find ourselves on a cross. Yet if we continue to listen deeply, the Spirit will stir in our hearts and will become an anchor for us, even in the most difficult moments of our lives. We have to take Jesus at his word here. Jesus says in John, I will ask God, and God will give you another counselor to be with you forever. I will not leave you desolate, I will come to you. The counselor does come, often when we least expect it. The counselor enables us to make decisions inspired by the Spirit, not only at decisive moments in our lives, but in the routine details of daily living. Listening for the counselor is a lifelong journey, and it is what we are created for. Listening for the counselor is like seeking the best counselor you possibly can. But instead of going to an office and looking at a counselor behind a desk, you might be lying back in the grass and looking up at the stars. Or you might be in that little prayer room like what my mother made when we were growing up. And that is where you find the counselor with a capital C. That is where you connect with your deep self. And the more we listen for the counselor, the more comfortable we can become in our own skin. And the more at home we feel in any and all circumstances, whatever they might be. And then we also are less prone to distraction. And we feel less in need of getting away, quote unquote. Because we are at home. We are at home in our own skin. It is normal to feel dissatisfied and discontent and restless at times. This is the human condition. Yet there is this anecdote. There is this divine counsel. No matter what we may be going through in our lives, whatever is going on in this world, this counsel is available. And it is not outside, as the great mystics tell us. It is inside. And it is very familiar. It belongs to us. It is our home. Even in this moment, I'm not talking about something that's not familiar. You got to go somewhere else. In this sanctuary, in this moment, the Spirit is with us. There is this deep longing that every human being has that only God can fill. And may we not pray as if God is absent. May we trust that God is indeed available. I will send you, Jesus says, another counselor who will not just be with you, but who will teach you the path of life. There is no more powerful realization than the Holy Spirit's presence. Some refer to the Holy Spirit as the voice of conscience. I've heard Oprah refer to the Spirit as our conscience. But I prefer the name counselor given in John's Gospel. May we recognize the ancient counsel. And may we listen for the wisdom that can make us whole. May we learn to listen, and after a time, may we feel a warm, familiar breath against our cheek. May we know that the Holy Spirit is in fact present. What a joy it is to slow down sometimes. And even like at this moment. And to know that the counselor abides with us and in us. What a joy it is to know that there is a God who is closer than we can imagine. As the mystics tell us, God is closer to us than our next breath. I celebrate our faith today, which is both ancient and modern. I celebrate the still small voice that spoke to our ancestors as they came across America in wagon trains. I